Everybody. So welcome to a Cloud EPM for Connected Financial Close update. My name is Rich Wilkie, and along with my friend and colleague Tim Gomo, we are going to take you through this presentation. Tim and I are both in product management here at Oracle. I've been around 20 years. Tim's been around what seems like 20 years, but I think it's probably only 6. So Tim does not know the solutions experience like I do. I started at Hyperion in 2000. So as much as virtual isn't quite the same thing, I applaud the effort, and let's see what we can cover today. So just going through, of course, the safe harbor statement. If we do get any roadmap questions, I don't think we have any roadmap slides, but anything that covered from a roadmap perspective, just understand that our roadmap does evolve and change, so don't make any decisions based on it. So let's talk a little bit about our agenda today. Short and sweet and to the point. I'm going to review financial close in the cloud. Really, what is it? What are we doing? What are really the makes it up, and why is it so important? Everybody always wants to hear about some customers, so we're going to do a little bit of sharing some customer success stories so you all can relate to some of your peers. For the HFM folks in the room, we do have a program that we've been running now for about, actually most of this year, called the HFM Application Analysis Program. I'm going to share some details with you on it so you can understand a little bit more, and then we just have a little call to action wrap up at the end. So let's get into it. So, I've been doing this job for 20 years, and actually anyone who's ever seen me do this present before knows that I started off in this world as a microcontroller administrator 1,000 years ago. And really, think of the evolution of what's happening within the sort of the controller's office is how that record to report process works. Obviously the world of before, and even for some of you, it might be the world now, your accounting resources are really spending most of their time processing, doing the work, not doing the analysis. Obviously, that's not a great business practice, and certainly not something in a chaotic world like we have right now is going to allow you to make those better decisions where you can outcompete with the others in your industry. So everybody's moving from this model where you've really got the majority of your resources focused in that accounting, that reconciliation, closing, and not analysis phase, and 10% are in the analysis phase. People are really moving towards this model, right? This is where everybody wants to be, where you have less of your resources focusing on the accounting activities, more focusing on the future. What is our forecast? Where are we going to go? What business decisions do we need to make to be successful? And really making that just a regular, repeatable process where you've got value add coming out of all your resources and really letting the software do that accounting work. And that's really something from a software vendor side where we can enable that shift. And that's really something that our software really puts you in the right position to make that shift. So for those of you who are on the on-premises side of things, and you might have seen this earlier with some of the other presentations, there is a big difference between how the on-prem world works from an upgrade standpoint and how the cloud works from an update standpoint. Clearly, in the on-prem world, many of you do upgrades maybe 3 to 5 years. Those upgrades tend to focus on the technical side, right? So people are focusing more on the latest browser support, or we need to upgrade Microsoft Office for our organization, and how do we enable that with our application? What you're not looking to do is innovate and solve new issues with the functionality in the software. So flash forward to the cloud. We do a monthly update process where we handle all of that for you. New features are automatically available in your application for you to turn on when you need to. So you don't have to, as business changes, as things evolve, you don't need to go ahead and say, oh, well, we have to do an upgrade. The upgrade's happening in a year. It's going to take us another 6 months. So we won't be able to do anything for 2 years. That doesn't work in this rapidly changing world. Having everything available to you today, being able to turn it on as you need it, that's really the key methodology to make you more successful. And that's one of those drivers that the cloud allows you to move from that yesterday continuum to today's continuum. And that's really why we think Cloud EPM is uniquely different. So this isn't from the Hyperion days. This isn't HFM and planning and all these different products. This is a single platform, and that single platform is designed to offer a full EPM system with packaged functionality and best practices across all areas that finance needs. So whether it's all of your different planning needs, from strategic planning all the way to forecasting, whether it's close activities, which we're going to drill in today, reporting your data, it's all wrapped together in a single platform. So it's a consistent experience for your users, and it also delivers integrated functionality. That's really a key driver of why people are moving to this. So we like to say, and this is just a short little plug, why we're different than other competitors. If you notice here, across all these domains, Oracle is the only one that's a leader across all these domains. You can check any of the analyst firms. Others might be strong in certain areas. Oracle is consistently strong across all these areas. And we think that delivers for you that unique, consistent EPM solution where you don't, where everything is totally integrated across all areas. So we survey our customers and we try to get feedback from them on sort of what they're experiencing with the software and really what their focus is. And you can see here, these are pretty good results that people are telling us. 72% are saying they're spending less time in closing the books. Less time in closing the books is more time in analysis. 40% reported saving money in audit fees. That's awesome, right? Time and money, those are the first two things that we talked about. 80% had a less complex close. Who doesn't want less complexity? Less complexity ultimately is better accuracy. These are all just real positive validations. These are surveys we do of our customers. These are not, this isn't data we make up. These are our customers telling us what they're getting out of the software. And I think it's a really nice validation of the hard work folks like Tim and myself put in. So let's talk a little bit about the connected financial close. And we talk about connected close because it's more than just, say, consolidations, or it's more than just account reconciliations. It's really that entire record to report process that we focus on with our connected close. So you can see here, we've got things like our tax provisioning, we've got things like reporting and activities, but we also bring in this whole level of automation, right? So anytime you're doing repeatable activities like consolidations or account reconciliations or any of that, that's an area where automation is really your friend. And so having that intelligent process automation really brings, speeds activities up, gets rid of time waiting for things to finish, and really improves the overall accuracy. So our focus is on this holistic process, not one or two certain areas. If we're going to cover sort of close from this standpoint, let's talk about 4 key areas. Obviously, consolidations and close is one. This is certainly something that folks are very familiar with. In the cloud, we really focus on getting away from being a scripting expert. Like for those of you who know HFM, nobody wants to be a VB expert. That isn't something that intuitively makes sense to an accountant. So we really learned off of our 30 years of experience working in this area, and we've built as many best practices and out-of-the-box functionality into our solution. We like to say it's configurable, it doesn't need customization. You can still customize if you want to, but you don't need to, like in other tools. From an account reconciliation standpoint, we really focus on sort of that global reconciliation process, giving you insight and transparency into your reconciliations, integrations to all the various data sources, whether it's Oracle ERPs or other. And also allowing you to do this transaction matching, this high volume transaction matching, which ultimately improves the accuracy of your overall reconciliation process. We also have tax reporting. You can't close the books without tax. Doing your tax provision is really a critical part of the overall close process. Tax is oftentimes the sort of ignored part of the finance office. And by having tax integrated into overall EPM, it really makes sense because it's a consistent integration and consistent tool set for all the various departments. And ultimately, none of this stuff is valuable unless you have good reporting. This isn't financial reporting. This is the next generation of it. And it really brings forward much better reporting tools for your end users to get and report out the data that they're working on. So let's drill into a little more details. I mentioned that we really focus on that whole approach to the record to report process, not focusing on one specific area. That's really critical because I think in the past we've been pretty siloed in the Hyperion world as far as how some of the different tools worked, and we wanted to solve that in the cloud and make that a complete integrated process. So whether it's capturing footnote details and linking those directly to a statement balance where you can just drill automatically and see them, or having reconciliation details natively a part of the overall process, or being able to just do all of your reporting across different areas right within the tool. That's all something that we really focus on. We also have focused extensively on out-of-the-box content, right? So this isn't where you all need to do lots of scripting. This isn't where you need to sort of reinvent the wheel. Across all the different areas, we have pre-built functionality. We have best practices that we think people should use. You don't have to. You can always build your own. But why would you build your own when we're providing that best practice and we make it configurable for you to change and make it unique towards any of your organization's requirements? And of course, it's all developed on the cloud platform. So it's all an integrated tool set. It's all directly right there, single reporting for it. And so it really makes it much easier for end users to really embrace leveraging the tools for their different processes. One of the examples I have over on the right is just an example of HFM versus the cloud for some of the most common rules. So in HFM, doing things like FX variations or CTA calcs or even cash flow, that was all extensive VB scripting. In the cloud, that's all prepackaged out-of-the-box functionality. So these are all areas where you don't need to write these calculations and sort of own and administer that VB script. These are all things that we just ship out of the box. And I think that's really a useful tool because end users will better understand what the system is doing. It's also easier for you to grow with it. So if you're wondering from an HFM standpoint, we've been at parity with HFM for about over a year. And, HFM is a 20-year-old, 20-year-old product. So there are 9 million features in that 20-year-old product. You can be as successful in the cloud as you can with HFM from both a functional and performance standpoint. Our team has really worked hard in the 4.5 years since we introduced Consolidations on the cloud, adding in any feature gaps, really expanding on the performance side, and really just overall focusing on listening to our customers and listening to our partners and making it a better offering. So we really feel comfortable with what we have today, and we'll share with you some of the stories as well a little later in the presentation. So if we could just sort of summarize some of the benefits, that single platform, this isn't one of those where you're doing all sorts of patching and trying to get browser support in different areas. It's a single platform, and it's incredibly easy for your users to interact with and for you to administer. The cloud has this level of modern analytics that you just never got in tools like HFM or financial close management. The dashboarding capabilities, the analytics, the reporting, those are really on a level much further above than what was available in on-prem. And then that out-of-the-box content. So think of connected close as being deeper, right? But also more functional, and allowing better reporting. So by bringing everything together, integrating it into a single platform with the increased focus on analytics and user experience, it really allows users to get more out of the data and ultimately make better decisions with it. So Tim's going to take us through a little bit on what we offer from a reconciliation standpoint.
Thanks, Rich. Hey, everybody. So if you attended Courtney's presentation just prior to this, this might be a little bit repetition for you. However, if you didn't, wanted to highlight just the modular approach we've taken to account reconciliation. And the reason is we have one module, reconciliation compliance, and the second is transaction matching. And the focus here is overall, you have a reconciliation process where you're, as Courtney covered, managing all those balance sheet account reconciliations that you have to do every period. We want to make sure those balances are accurate so we can trust our reporting and everything else downstream. So reconciliation compliance is really that product. That's where their module, I should say. That's where we want to ensure that all those combinations of legal entities and accounts are assigned. They've all got due dates, reminders are going out, and when those reconciliations are done, of course, they've got all the supporting documentation, audit trail, everything else that's required to call that reconciliation complete. And that's also where we do a lot of automation, of course. Our own Oracle finance team uses this tool as well as our cloud ERP. And out of 30,000 reconciliations, they automate around 22,000 of those. So definitely a powerful tool in order to manage that overall reconciliation process. For transaction matching, this is really where we help out and with the heavy lifting on the complex, higher volume reconciliations. So they really do talk and work together. They're completely integrated, because if you're loading and matching every day, you want to make sure at the end of the period that account is in balance. And of course, we automate those steps as well. And we don't, unlike other tools, you don't have to stop loading and matching every day when you get to period end. You can continue on, last working day, the period, on to work day 1, 2, 3, into the next period, continue loading and matching. And we actually keep track of, what accounting dates each transaction has, what periods reconciliations they should be part of. So it's a completely integrated set of modules to make that reconciliation process much simpler. Next slide, please. I wanted to also show and talk a little bit about how customers implement the two modules. And transaction matching is interesting because if you take your whole world of reconciliations on the left-hand side there, pretend that pyramid is however many reconciliations you have to do each period. Let's say it's 1,000, 10,000, whatever that number is. It's actually a smaller percentage of the reconciliations from account perspective that cause most of the time spent. So you've got 10, 15% of the total reconciliations causing 30, 40, 50% of your time spent. And again, that's really why we have the transaction matching module that is really focused on that. We want to help with the heavy lifting of those particular reconciliations, make that process simpler. And again, if you're loading and matching and keeping in track of the reconciliation data sources every day, then when you get to the end of the period, it's a much simpler and smooth period and cycle. And again, that's really what we want to do. We don't want a bunch of work during the close, at the end of the period every month. We want to smooth out that curve of work, try to, do what we can each and every day to basically be performing almost like a mini close every day and staying on top of the transactions. The other reason I mentioned this slide is because when customers implement account reconciliation in the cloud, your strategy can be one of two things. You can decide to do transaction matching first and then maybe rec compliance next, or vice versa. You might do rec compliance first and then transaction matching later. Or I also have clients that choose to implement both at the same time. Either way, most of the time, transaction matching is typically a phased approach. You might tackle your most painful, higher volume reconciliations first. Let's get those automated and under wraps as quick as we can, and then move on to the next ones as well. So it also plays into your implementation strategy as far as how you want to use these modules. Okay, next slide, please. Next slide, Rich. So customers ask, what does the tool really look like? How do I transition to the cloud? So that top left-hand sheet there, I actually got that from a customer. That is a spreadsheet where we had a highly skilled customer user who went to university and became an accountant, fully certified, fully fledged accountant, and then he had to tick and tie and track the status of these reconciliations in a spreadsheet every day. So not a lot of fun for him. He wanted to add value to the bottom line of his company, yet he was spending his time in that spreadsheet in the top left corner tracking. I think he had about 1,200 reconciliations that his particular company was tracking. And it's very typical. There's some combination of legal entity, account, maybe cost center level that you're tracking these reconciliations, tracking these balances at that they need to be done. Usually if they have a good tracking sheet, there would be somebody assigned to each of those, a frequency, and they'll track a status, right? Well, in spreadsheet land, you always have issues with that. The spreadsheet's not up to date. It's manual, obviously. It's not linked into the rest of the close at all. So the after picture is much nicer. You're in the software, you're using the application to track these reconciliations. As I mentioned, a large percentage of the reconciliations can be automated. If balances change, we can reopen and have the person recertify. Or as I mentioned on the previous call, even if balances change by a small amount, we don't necessarily have to leave it open. We can track the fact that the balance changed and then reclose it if that's what we want to do with our rules. So really flexible tool and design around handling all these reconciliations within the application, so you don't have to do that tracking in a spreadsheet. Okay, next slide, please. Also, it's not just tracking the reconciliations, it's helping perform the reconciliations as well. So that spreadsheet that you see on the left side was a typical ledger to subledger comparison that a customer was doing in PeopleSoft. If you have a single account balance with no subledger, no bank to compare it to, we have a template for that also we call it an account analysis style of reconciliation, where you're explaining why the balance is what it is. But either way, the point here is we help out with the performing of the reconciliation as well. So not just tracking the overall status and due dates and everything else, but also performing the rec. You can see this here is a reconciliation that Kerry Lane is responsible for. He's part of a team called AP Prepares. There's certain commentary back and forth between the team members. On the right-hand side, we track attachments, commentary, audit trail, questions and answers, anything that you want to track that would make this reconciliation from an auditor perspective standalone on its own is tracked here. So we can make sure that everything's in one place. And like I said, obviously we automate what we can too. If these, for example, if these balances are the same, we can automatically close that. If the balance is 0 and I expected it to be 0, we can automatically close that. So lots of different flexibility around rules and performing the reconciliations as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, and last slide I have is around data integration. It's very, very critical to the process, right? Not just account reconciliations, but the entire EPM stack. There's already been a couple questions that we answered on the Q&A about how do we get data into the tool. And a lot of our clients have a combination of cloud and on-premise, right? So we have cloud data management is part of the entire EPM stack, whether it's linked into account reconciliation, consolidation close, planning, whatever you're using, you can use cloud data management to pull data from cloud ERP or from on-premise sources. And that's what this is depicting here. We have an EPM integration agent that can pull data from EBS, PeopleSoft, SAP, anything you need to pull data from, we can pull it up into the cloud and use it in our process. And the important thing there is once you've pulled that data once, for example, period end balances, I can use that data in consolidations, I can use it in account reconciliations. The nice thing about this agent is once you've pulled that data from that one single source, we can use it in our various processes as we need to, or because we have modular deployment, you can actually even pull different data if you need to feed something a little different for consolidation versus account rec. So either way, we've got you covered as far as how we pull the data, whether you want it to be consistent or whether you'd like to have a different requirement depending on the process, you can do that as well. Okay, and with that, I'll pass it back to Rich.
Great, thanks, Tim. So also, if we think about the value of reporting, all these processes need really strong reporting, and so narrative reporting in the cloud really takes things up a level. And this is really where I think there's a clear value add to a lot of customers is reporting is not just being able to run a report. It's really the three-pronged area here. One is obviously you just need great reporting. You need really good charting. It needs to be easy to design a report. You just need that true premier reporting experience. So in the cloud, you can use FR, but certainly we have advanced reporting capabilities within Narrative that we really encourage all customers to leverage and will replace FR in the near future. We also have what are called report packages. So think how often you put together a report, but you're working with your peers. Tim might look, Tim did part of this presentation, I'm doing the other part. We're collaborating together to pull something together. That's a perfect example of a report package. You need to have assignments. You want to have check-ins and check-outs. You want to be able to have approvers to it. And you want to be able to mix both your textual commentary as well as your data to bring that together. Every month, every quarter, you're always preparing these outputs that you're delivering to different end users. And it's really a great way to kind of bring together both just the data capabilities, but also bringing in the textual capabilities as well. And then certainly if you're a narrative, if you're a regulatory person, you want to get involved in the tagging side of things, those capabilities are available as well. So narrative reporting across all of EPM Cloud delivers those three core capabilities, and it really takes you up a level as far as what you can accomplish across all your different business processes, whether you're doing planning or consolidations or account recs or a combination of all of that. All that information can be brought together into these reports. So I think it's interesting to talk about emerging technology in the context of what we're doing, because I think it's something that we all hear about quite often on the news. Many of us interact with a Siri or a Google. Here at Oracle, we use Slack. All these are different tools, different collaborative tools that contain some emerging technology as well. So how does that really interact with what we're doing from a finance perspective? Well, our focus is really on the two middle areas. So one is this whole concept of machine learning or automation. How do we bring that process in and really make your lives easier? There's also a focus on intelligent applications. That makes a little more sense on the planning side up front, but really those are the two key areas where you're going to continue to see innovations and deliverables from Oracle. So if I think about sort of automation and that machine learning and the close, activities in the close are repeatable, right? We do these things every month, every quarter. That's an awesome area where machine learning can step in and help. Everything from automating a close process, whether it's automating the extract from a ledger, the mappings, the loading, the consolidating, all that can be automated, and intelligent automation where basically you don't need to tell it. It'll know when it needs to do those activities and notify people appropriately. But even activities such as in account recs, as we match our transactions and we improve the system should automatically improve the algorithms based on the matching, how we're matching unmatched transactions. It should learn from that process and therefore get better and smarter, so the amount of matched transactions will only increase. From a consolidation standpoint, when you're reviewing intercompany and you have an out of balance and you take an action to remedy it, the software can learn when those actions start happening and start putting those things into workflow automatically. So there's all sorts of opportunities where we can learn from activities and bring intelligence into it, as well as just doing all sorts of automation on top of it to really make this close process that much more efficient and that much more accurate. We also, and this is something we actually have in the wild right now, our digital assistant. We have this released now to about 4 customers who are giving us some feedback. So this is something that will be delivered hopefully in the next few months for everyone. This is another way to interact with the software. So think of it as you're in a meeting. If you're like me or Tim, you're in like 400 meetings a day, and you can't always log onto your computer, log onto the system, run a report, and get a data value. Well, wouldn't it be great if you could just open up Slack on your phone and ask, interact that way, or Microsoft Teams, or, the ability to interact with the software through a digital assistant is just another way to make it easier for users to get access to data. And I think that's certainly something where we see an interesting focus. I just thought I'd show a quick little demonstration of it. Here's an example where I come in, and this is one where we've got the chatbot just enabled within the software. You can ask it for a list of commands. You can go ahead and actually ask it a question, like what is the close status? It's going to return values. So these are things you typically would be navigating around the software. I can drill on any of these areas if I want to, like I can drill in onto my late tasks. I can look at open tasks. I can ask it status of things like, are there any journal entries for me to approve? Or what's a data value? Here's the journal entry question. So this is an interesting way where I'm not actually opening up journal entries. I'm just actually doing it through my assistant. Imagine you were doing this through Slack or any other medium. So I think you get the picture, but from an account rec as well as consolidations and close standpoint, having the ability to interact in a different manner is something that I think is appealing to some people. Certainly there's a newer generation of accounting users who might have grown up with a different set of tools than, say, myself or Tim, who might be a little bit older, and they might appreciate having just another method to interact with the data. So let's talk a little bit about some of the customers. So we wanted to throw some customers. Here's an example of some who've moved from, say, on-prem Hyperion, so they've made that move over, and others who've moved from other solutions. And so, just to start off, I've actually presented a number of times with Avis at some different events. Everybody knows Avis from a car rental standpoint. An HFM customer that moved to the cloud for consolidations and close. They actually expanded their analysis capabilities, as well as they're leveraging account recs, as well as they actually are on ERP cloud as well. So really moved to a full cloud deployment for all of their both ERP as well as EPM, and really deployed across all the different areas and had a very successful deployment. So that's just one customer that we've worked with. Another example to talk about is Eaton Corporation. Eaton's another customer that just is live leveraging both consolidations and close as well as account recs. moved off of HFM from a consolidation standpoint. So really embrace sort of that EPM cloud deployment to manage all of their EPM activities, and certainly something that has a very large user base leveraging EPM cloud to do that. Tim, maybe some stories you wanted to share?
Sure, yeah, I think a good example too might be Ameren. This is a customer that is now in the cloud with account reconciliations. They didn't really have anything else in the cloud until that project. So I could have mentioned that earlier too, that a lot of customers are getting, you have to pick something, pick a process, pick something you want to move to the cloud first. And for them, it was a good strategy to start with account reconciliations and do that in the cloud, have some success there. And now they're moving on to other processes as well. As Rich mentioned, customers coming from on-premise to cloud too, like ADT and OneOak, and competitor tools as well. A number of these customers were using other cloud point solutions or on-premise, spreadsheets like Blackline or a Trintech product, for example, and now they're all, using centralized cloud applications from EPM and ERP. So lots of good stories on here. And I actually touched on our own Oracle team as well. They're no different. They were using on-premise EBS and in a lot of cases for different parts of the close process spreadsheets. So they've now moved to the cloud as well for across the different products.
Great, thank you, Tim, for that. And so now just kind of wrap it up a little bit. I wanted to talk a little bit about this HFM program that we discussed earlier. So a lot of HFM customers are wondering, what will it take for me to move to the cloud? I saw a presentation by Rich 2 years ago and he talked about X. So, or I heard this. So I think there's a lot of sort of confusion on whether, you're moving to the cloud is right for you. And so we created this program and it's initiated via your local Oracle team. You don't come directly to myself. You really should go through your local Oracle contacts who can work with us. We basically take your metadata file and your rules file, by the way, metadata file, XML, not APP, and your rules file, and we do some analysis of your application. The analysis basically looks through your metadata, looks through your rules, kind of looks through how you're using the system, what some of your activities are, and we give you basically an output that says, okay, here's what we see in your HFM application. By the way, we've done so many of these that we're actually at the point now where we're complementing or recommending HFM improvements to some customers. Like, you've got a great HFM app, you did a really good job here, or, oh my God, what were you doing with your rules? It's kind of interesting when you start comparing so many side by side. But then we also give you an output what that would look like in the cloud, right? So we talk about how a lot of your rules might move over to the cloud to be out of the box, so you wouldn't actually have any more maintenance of those rules. We talk about some of the ways where your metadata and dimensions might be done differently in the cloud because we have more system level functionality. We basically just give you our analysis of what your HFM application would look like in the cloud. That's something that a lot of customers have appreciated because it really gives them a level of comfort that development has been involved and development has done this analysis. This isn't something that sales is doing. This is something that my team is doing. And my team is doing this quite honestly because we find the earlier we're involved in these projects, the better relationships we have with you all, the more successful those projects are longer term. And so it's just another way for us to engage with customers at an earlier time frame and make sure that we think it's a good fit and it's a good situation moving to the cloud. There also are some other programs that are available in addition to that once you would become a customer. And so I just want to cover some of these off. We do have something called an Implementation Success Program. That's once again another development program where as your project moves from, say, design phase all the way to go live, there is a person from development who is a regular part of your project team who helps bring in any development resources as needed, can help motivate support if we need to, and can help us avoid getting in any bad situations. What we're trying to do is avoid, having an escalation 2 weeks before go live. If we're involved up front, we avoid all those activities. So that's definitely a program for people. The automating regression testing, something we can help you set up regression testing so that every month when those updates happen, you can just run a job and all your regression testing will be done automatically. There's also performance work that we can do to help make sure that you understand what your performance will be and how your performance will work out as you go live. And then also from a support standpoint, just to give you a better level of support, there is a Platinum Support Program. So these are all additional activities to kind of ensure that your project will be successful. And we've had a lot of success with using these with customers. Everyone Kim and I talked about earlier participated, and it really made their projects better. These are all available. They don't cost any money. These are all available to you. So certainly something with your projects you might want to look into as you engage in these activities. So about 10 minutes short. Tim, do we have any questions popping up that we need to cover?
Sure, yeah, one here is around Power BI. So I think the main question is just, I have another reporting tool, how do I get my data over to it? So I've had customers, whether it's Tableau or any other reporting tool, you can put your extracts or reports on a schedule, and that schedule, hourly, daily, is up to you. So that data gets automatically refreshed by using our EPM Automate tool, or you can call an API to get the report data sent externally from our cloud. That way your external source is updated. I think that answers that question, unless you want to add something there, Rich.
No, that was good.
Okay. There's another question about customers using XBRL and tagging, and I don't know if we publish that. I certainly don't have the answer to that. How many customers are actually using that? Something that.
Oh, so here's the question. I'm not sure actually. That would be I believe Al Marciante has a follow-up reporting presentation. So certainly something that Al can help answer, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay. I did answer a number of questions regarding data loads as well. So, and I think I touched on it when I was talking about the slide for the on-premise integration agent. So I do have customers today that take the same data, whether they're using consolidations or account reconciliation, to extract the data one time, and then you can use it in both processes. We have a lot of others that also will give us the data. They want to give us the data levels. So maybe in account recs, you want the period end balances at a company code, account, and cost center level, because that's how you do your reconciliations. And maybe you want to do it at a different level in Consol. You can do that too. So either way is fine. Same data file or separate files.
There's a question just popped up. Is the regression testing available monthly, or is it a one-time thing as requested? So in general, the regression testing is set up as a one-time, and then you execute it every month. So we work with you to basically determine what your requirements are as far as regression testing, because obviously everyone's different. And then we build out that regression testing scripting for you, and then it's something you just execute. So it's definitely something you would do every month, but it's a one-time process to create it. Now, of course, if you need to update it because things radically change, that can be done, but it's basically a one-time project to create it, and then it's up to you how often you run it. All right, so I don't see, oh, something just popped up. Can financial close capture process management promotions rejections from HFM? So you're talking about that. I'm assuming this is talking about leveraging the task management capabilities with promotions and rejections in HFM. I don't think those are exposed. I think those process management like approvals, but I don't think that level of detail. But I'd have to check. So maybe you could just email me and I'll look into that. It's rich.wilkie@oracle.com. Okay, so I think I don't see any other questions popping in. So just to shamelessly plug for other presentations, Al Marciante and I on Wednesday have an on-prem update session, and Thursday I have a HFM to the cloud session, which will kind of expand on what we covered today from that. So we always love to see you guys show up to our other presentations. But certainly, thanks everyone for coming. If you have any follow-up questions, you can always contact Tim or myself. We're on LinkedIn if you don't know our emails. But we definitely encourage you guys to take a look, feel good about these activities, lots of good stories out there. And definitely don't be shy about reaching out to your Oracle team and wanting to see more. We'd love it. So thank you so much, everybody, and have a great conference.